Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have been thinking very heavily about what I want to be reading this October, not just October, autumn in general. I've already started to bring out some of my autumnal decor. I'll probably be putting bits and bobs on my socials if you want to follow me over there. But yes, I have got so many books that I have been saving sort of all year round because I knew that it would hit better during the autumn months. Now, I'm filming this on a day that's actually very summery. The sun is shining and it's actually getting quite warm, but the TBR is stacking up, so I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about the books I'll be reading this autumn and maybe books that you should add to your TBR as well. Going in strong with a book about a demon, I'm going to try and get to Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole. I feel like I always butcher this surname. Mera. I got gifted this book at Christmas last year, so I've literally been saving this for near enough a year because I just thought this sounded like the perfect, fun, easy autumnal read. And it is pretty much exactly what it says on the title. It's about a girl called Evie who is basically looking for any kind of employment to support her family and thus ends up being the assistant to the villain. Basically, she's the assistant to the devil. But she is quickly falling for him and finding him very attractive. So I guess that's just the gist of this. It just sounds, like I say, so fun, so easy to read. I've seen people read this somewhat recently and they seem to actually really enjoy it. So I'm not gonna lie, at first it was one of those books where I was just like, oh, is this just gonna be like really cliche and cheesy? But apparently it's actually quite fun. So I'm really excited to read this. Now, just going out there, I'm really not much of a thriller girly. They're just not something that I reach for. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy them, because the few thrillers that I have read I typically have quite enjoyed, but it's just not something that I'm ever really in the mood for, although I do feel like the latter months of the year are some of the best times to read thrillers. But I am going to try and read 5 Survive by Holly Jackson because I loved Good Girls Guide to Murder series. That was one of my favourite series from last year, so I think I definitely need to give this a try. I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I just loved Holly Jackson's writing and the way she wrote her characters, so I'm intrigued to see how she does in this, because this book actually takes place within, I think, like 6 or 7 hours. Like the entire start to finish literally takes place within like a few hours. Fred and her friends are on a road trip and unfortunately their RV breaks down en route. They're completely in the middle of nowhere, but they quickly realise that the RV breaking down is not a coincidence. There is someone out there looking for blood. And from what I remember, each part of this book follows a different time. So for example, 2 AM, and then that part is that, and then it just breaks it up into all the different times of the evening. You can kind of see the lines there, how it's broken up, which sounds really interesting actually. I don't ever really read books that take place in such a short amount of time, so I feel like that's quite a challenge for the author to really develop their characters and their story when they've only been given themselves like an 8-hour time period. But regardless, this is really intriguing to me. Next up, The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. I read The Ex-Hex by her, God, maybe like 3 years ago now, and I loved that book. And I read it in January, which is so rogue, but I loved it. And I think about it all the time, actually. I really should give that a reread because I was just obsessed with it. So when I saw this in the works in the middle of spring, I was like, right, I'm obviously not going to read that now, but I am buying that specifically for when autumn hits, because this, I believe, is the second book in that series. I didn't realise when I read The Ex-Hex that it was going to be a series, so this obviously follows another one of the characters from that book. And I haven't even read the blurb on this actually, because I just knew that I loved the first one. I'd probably love this one, so let me just recap. Of course, okay, I forgot. So the main character's friend in the first book runs like a witchy shop, and that's who we're following in this book. Her name is Gwyn. Oh, I forgot about that. That is so exciting. Basically, the gist of these books is it involves witches and magic, but it's also giving Stars Hollow. Like, it's like very small town vibes, but it's very like witchy and cozy, and it literally just feels like a more enchanting version of Stars Hollow when I was reading the first book. So this is going to be the ultimate cozy witchy vibes for this autumn, and I honestly couldn't recommend the first one enough, so hopefully I really enjoyed this one. But yeah, you should definitely also read The Ex-Hex if you haven't yet, because that is such a good book. Another one I've been saving for months and I'm so excited I get around to reading it soon is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I've heard so many mixed reviews actually on this, but mostly really positive ones, and it just sounds so gothic and like quite dark and mysterious, and I just think this is going to be the ultimate autumn book. It basically follows a girl called Signa, and she is cursed that every person, is it everyone she touches? Oh no, I don't think she has to touch them, but just anyone that she spends time with and sort of anyone around her ends up dead. So essentially she's like death incarnate, but she forms an alliance with death. And we go from there. I think it might be a romance type thing. Is there a romance between her and death? I'm not sure. Girl who's cursed with essentially killing people, having a romantic relationship with death himself. Like, that sounds like nothing I've really read before, but something that I'm gonna really enjoy. So I've been so excited to get to this. Also, the covers are all stunning. Like, this isn't my favorite cover. My favorite cover is the one with, I'm assuming it's Signa on the front cover. And Wisteria, the third book and the third and final book in this trilogy, has just been released, so it is now a complete series, so it's a great time to start reading it if you want to. The hardcover copies with the faces on the front are gorgeous, but like, even so, this paperback version is also just as stunning. Like, props to whoever designed these books because they've done an incredible job. I also love so far how all the books I've suggested are like purple. Is that like a trend? To be fair, I feel like purple is giving, it's definitely giving magic. Like, if I think of magic, I just think of like deep purples with like sparkles and stuff, because I feel like that just screams magic. This is a book that I have already read, but a very long time ago. And I'm finally going to get around to rereading it. I've been wanting to do it for so long because I now have the full series, and that is Caribel by Stephanie Garber. I really enjoyed this book when I last read it, and I also read it, I think I read it just before autumn. It might have been like very end of August, which is a bit of a rogue time to do it, but I've been wanting to get back into this for so long, especially ever since the Once Upon a Broken Heart series was released, because I just think, I know I'm gonna adore that trilogy, and while I know it's not completely necessary to read this one first, it works in my brain. So I want to reread Caribel. I've then also got Legendary and Finale on my shelves ready to go as well. And yeah, this is really giving mysterious, whimsical, cozy. I can't even think of the word that I want to use to properly describe it, but it's nighttime, there's games, there's magic, there's mystery, showmanship, if you will. It's, oh, I can't wait to get back into this world, basically, because it literally makes me feel like it's not scary, but there's a place near me called Scaresville, and it's basically, essentially, it's like a horror walkthrough, which, like I say, this isn't a horror, but before your horror walkthrough, it's like this greenery, and there's like tarot tents and like a carnival tent with like hoop performers in it. And that part of Scaresville is what this reminds me of, just like the carnival part beforehand with the tents and the performers and like costumes and bonfires, and I just, oh my gosh, no. Can you tell I'm really excited to get back into this again? I can't wait. And I'd also like to recommend on the back of this, because this also, when I read this, gave me quite strong Night Circus vibes, by Erin Morgenstern. I read that book literally like 10 years ago now, and I've reread it so many times. It's still on my shelves, might even get around to reading it again. I love that book, which is basically about two young magicians who grow up with their magic, and then it turns into like a kind of rivalry. Honestly, I need to refresh my memory because I haven't read that book now for a long time, which is why I want to do another reread. But I remember the way that I felt reading that book is the way that I was feeling when I read this book. So definitely very similar, and another great book for your autumn TBR if you want to get into something very mysterious and magical. Well, nothing screams Halloween and October and just autumn in general than vampires. Like, come on, I know everyone's going to be starting their Twilight rewatch soon, so I decided that that would be a great time to read this, The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. How did I forget that? And this is about vampires, to my understanding, and from the sounds of it, this is giving like OG Throne of Glass, kind of like Powerless vibes. It involves a tournament of a human girl who was adopted by a royal vampire. So obviously she's going to be put up against a lot of notoriously strong and powerful vampires as a human in this tournament. So there's going to be trials and tribulations, there's going to be challenges, but I eat up tournament tropes all the time. Like I say, there's a tournament in Throne of Glass, there's a tournament in Powerless, I suppose Hunger Games. I eat that shit up. It is just such an easy storyline to follow. Like, it's familiar, but it's still just as exciting, just as kind of like nail biting. I love the way they can incorporate magic systems into it. I just love it. But I haven't read one that involves vampires before. In fact, I haven't really read much vampire fiction. I've read Bride was vampire. I didn't actually like that. I've never read Twilight, dare I say. My roommate is a vampire. That would be another great one actually to add to your autumn TBR if you haven't already. I read that last year. It was just very fun and easy to read. I love vampires. I watched the originals way back when and I adored that TV show, which is all about vampires. If you haven't watched it, I highly suggest you do this autumn. But yeah, I'm ready to get into some more vampire fiction, so we'll be adding this to my TBR. And this one, which is the last of the books on my physical TBR, I feel like this isn't explicitly autumnal. However, I've been neglecting this book for well over a year. Everyone and their nan's neighbour has read it and I still haven't, and I have been actively avoiding it for I don't know what reason. And that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevlin. I'm clutching at straws with the whole autumnal vibe because I know this involves video games and I'm normally much more heavily in my video game era in the fall and winter months because you just get cozy, you got your little controller, you're just like huddled up playing games or on your laptop or computer or whatever. And obviously, like I say, this does involve video game creation, so I just thought maybe that would make me more inclined to read it because I know that's part of the contents, and like I say, I'm all about my gaming in the autumn months. I don't really need to explain much about this book. I think, like I say, pretty much everyone has read it, or if not, they know a lot about it, so it speaks for itself. But I would really love to get to this and just to, even if it's just to get it off my TBR, but I'm sure I'm gonna love it. Everyone I know has loved this book. So now onto the books that I don't own but would still love to get to this month. The first one is by a fellow booktuber, Lucy Jane Wood, and if you haven't heard, where have you been? She is releasing a brand new debut book in literally a few weeks time. I think it literally comes out in September, and it's called Rewitched, and it's, well, for a start, it looks like the most gorgeous autumnal book you've ever seen, but it also sounds so good. It's basically about a girl called Belladonna, so we've got another Belladonna going on here, and she's a witch. She practices witchcraft, but she also works at like a publishing house, a bookshop, something like that. Anyway, she is burnt out from work, so she barely has time to practice her witchcraft away from work. But then when she turns 30, she's summoned from her coven and she basically is put in for a trial to make sure that her magic is like as best as it can be. Otherwise, she risks losing it forever. Again, another trial situation. I love trials. I love trials and tournaments. They are my favourite. And yeah, there's a romance, there's found family. It sounds so good, so I'm 100% adding that to my TBR for this month. The next book has been in my TBR since the book's release, and that is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsar Faisal. I think I've got that right, and this sounds so good. It's giving Six of Crows vibes. I mean, purely because it's heist related. I feel like everyone, as soon as they see a book about a heist, they're like, Six of Crows. I mean, Six of Crows is incredible, and if you haven't read that duology, autumn would be a great time to do so. As I say, it literally just follows a bunch of like bandits, if you will, who all join together. They're all from different throngs of life and they're thrown together in a group of different abilities to basically succeed at completing a heist. It's part of the Grishaverse, so if you've seen Shadow and Bone on Netflix or you've read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, I would really recommend reading the Six of Crows duology. But anyway, it's about a girl called Arthi who owns a tea room, but by night that tea room turns into an illegal blood house. So basically a place for vampires to go of an evening to get their fix of blood. However, the establishment is threatened of being exposed, so Arthi has to work in partnership with others to stop that from happening. And by others, I mean outcasts. And they basically complete this mission to keep the blood house alive, and it just sounds so good. I know Rachel Catherine really enjoyed this one, so I feel like we have pretty similar book tastes, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. It sounds like the perfect spooky read. Another book or series in general that I've wanted to start for so long but just still haven't got round to yet, and it's actually on my 24 books for 2024, and that is the Entangled with Fae series. And I believe the first book is Curse of the Wolf King, which I think is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I do love the idea of a retelling because it does make it a bit easier to get into, especially, you know, fantasies can be so difficult to follow, understand the lore and the magic systems and everything, but when you kind of know the base of the storyline, it's just so much easier to get yourself straight into it. So I've heard really good things about this series from Sarah Crowley, so I'm hoping that I enjoy it as well. It's definitely going to be like a Kindle read, I think, but there's quite a few out now. I know there's a Little Mermaid one, there is a Snow White one, I believe, maybe a Sleeping Beauty. So yeah, I am really excited to read these books, but I would definitely like to get around to at least reading the first one this autumn. I'm still to read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I know, crazy, I haven't got around to it yet. I was kind of waiting for it to come out in paperback, but then I kind of still haven't really got around to it, and I feel like I don't really see it in any of my local bookshops, which is really shocking. So it's one of those ones I haven't really gone to get because I don't ever really see it when I'm out and about. But I would love to read that. I've heard that's a really good one to read in the autumn with the whole like typewriter vibe. From what I understand, it's about two rival journalists and they're writing letters back and forth from each other during a war of the gods. Honestly, other than that, I'm not too sure, but I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of it already, but I would love to get to that this autumn. Oh, another one actually that I do have the physical copies of, but I just couldn't be bothered to bring with me. And again, this is more of a personal TBR as opposed to, I feel like, it is perfect for autumn and winter. I would love to finish the Throne of Glass series. So all I have left is the tandem read and obviously Kingdom of Ash following from that. I am scared to start it. It's gonna be a mission, but I know it's gonna be so worth it once I've done it. So yes, I do have those to read. I mean, fantasy I feel like always hits well in the autumnal months, so I guess you could add that. I mean, add Throne of Glass in general to your TBR if you haven't read the series yet. It is insane. Another level of storytelling and plot development and character development. Like, you've not read anything like it, I swear. But yes, I will also be doing my tandem read very, very soon. But yes, those are the books that I'm going to try my best to get to this autumn. I hope that you found some new book recs for yourself. Let me know in the comments if you've already read any of these books, what you thought of them, which ones you think I might like the most. I think out of all the ones I've mentioned, I am the most excited to read Belladon. I've been really excited to get to that. Definitely Caribel. I actually can't really remember what happened in it even though I've read it already, so I feel like it's going to be like discovering everything brand new again. Can't wait. But yeah, please like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back next week with a summer reading wrap up. Take care friends, bye!